Anthony Ferraro, Dan Mancina. Two blind guys collide to bring you Four Bad Eyes Podcast.
Four bad eyes, four bad eyes, four bad eyes, four bad eyes.
Come on, Kelly.
Four bad eyes.
And two good eyes. We're in it, baby.
All right, we got.
I can't keep talking with that voice changer on.
I did not know that was Dan.
We've got two intros now.
Yeah, we got two. We got Pete Gustin and that one. We bring you into the show, baby. And for this show, we have a very special,
Extremely. A behind the scenes
the backbone, some might say.
creator, filmer, editor, producer.
She runs 5 different jobs in her life.
Also works full time.
Has a full-time job and then edits all my stuff. It is my wife, Miss Kelly Ann Walborn Ferraro. Give it up.
Whoa!
Yeah.
Hi, Kelly.
Hi. That was a really cut short applause.
They were kind of
keep
over
'em-
it.
we keep
Yeah,
'em-
we keep a tight shift
Keep
here.
them at bay.
Yeah, they'll keep going.
They be clapping the
They
whole
don't
time.
stop. Yeah,
All right.
Yeah, you deserve more though.
you
I
do.
know.
That's all right.
So, you guys are having a baby.
Yep.
Kelly's super excited.
I'm holding my stomach.
Oh yeah,
We
we
had to
got a
wait
little
20
baby in here.
We had to wait 20 minutes for her to do her makeup before this episode here.
We don't get makeup done. That's not
Yeah.
fair.
I only put lipstick on, mascara, and a little bit of color on my eyebrows.
Yeah, I could use some blush.
Yeah, I could use
I
a
could
little.
do your makeup before the shows.
I could use a little.
Producer.
Emily, where's Emily?
Emily's the hairstylist.
We'll add makeup artist to your
Your resume.
list of duties.
She,
That was like when Anthony
we-
got makeup once.
oh, yeah, I did. Not from Kelly, but
Oh, was that for the shark?
the Jim Shark
Jim
thing.
Shark.
Yeah, but Kelly, when we
And Google.
film my videos, sometimes Kelly will come in. She'll be like, "Your hair is a mess," blah blah blah, and like I used to get annoyed, so she had to start pretending her name was. She'd be like, "Emily, get in here," and then she would switch roles
Oh
to
my
Emily.
God.
Yeah,
It's kind of hot, but it's different.
yeah. Me and Emily had
Multiple
a thing.
names.
And Emily.
Yeah.
Emily.
Cool.
Yeah.
Welcome to the
I
studio.
figured we needed to do it before and after.
Pre-baby, post-baby.
Yeah,
Pre-op, post-op.
We could have the baby on the next step with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna bring the pod to the hospital.
At least, we're going to need to have Heather on that one, or
We will.
Yeah, we
we're
will.
going to need a nanny
You already
during
knew
nap
me.
time or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that's gonna be a thing.
I'm saying it's a boy. Is that what I guessed the first time?
Yeah,
think?
I would love a boy. I would be happy with either, but I have this feeling that I'm going to be with 3 girls.
3 girls.
I'm going to be outnumbered.
Delta.
Kelly and
Victoria.
Victoria.
All right, here's my theory: is that if it's a boy, I won't have to do as much work later
Mm-hmm.
because I can just be like, go do stuff with your dad. If it's a girl and she likes girly things,
Yeah, the boys emotionally are just easier.
It's tricky, though, because in the beginning, my
Listen,
brother
it's
has...
gonna be Anthony's child, though.
That's
I'm emotional.
very
And
good
he's
point.
I'm
emotional.
emotional.
That's a very good point.
I think
Yeah.
I'm growing up emotionally a little bit.
Yeah,
Getting a little better.
you've
Yeah.
grown since I've known
Well, it's not like a bad thing that you're emotional. It's just that you are full of emotion.
I'm very sensitive.
and you're
I,
in touch with them. So
you. I'm very sensitive too.
Yeah, we are.
know?
It's something about being the youngest. And Kelly is actually the oldest.
I am the oldest of 4, and Anthony is the youngest of 5. So I watched my mom
Mm-hmm.
have kids after me, and I know what it's like to have little babies around. And
Not me.
Anthony has no idea because
He's a
he was
baby.
the baby.
I think the first baby I saw in the hospital was my brother's second kid.
Mm. That's a good point because I never had little brothers or anything. I'm
And
the youngest.
you experienced your mom have home births.
Yeah, I actually.
You cut the umbilical cord.
Well, the first home birth that I was born in a hospital. My brother was born in a birth center. And then, because, I was born in Connecticut. And then we moved to California when I was like a year old. And so then the granola started slowly seeping in. And we lived in Northern California too. Redding,
Very
shout
northern.
out way far up there. And so birth center was my brother. And then my mom had a home birth with my third, my first sister, so who's the third born. And that was planned. So it was I just remember we would stay with our friends, the neighbor, and we'd keep coming back and checking in, still in the same position. And I'm like, oh my gosh, how long does this take? I just remember thinking it took forever. But then the fourth born, my sister Carly,
This is a great story.
she was supposed to be born at the midwife's house because that's what that was her thing. That was like a home birth, but not at our home. But my mom couldn't even get in the car. So, because she was like, no, this baby is coming. And so.
By the fourth one, they just fall right out.
Basically, especially 4 kids in 5 years. And so then she, I'll never forget this because I was 5. I had a pretty good memory at that point. My dad sits all 3 of us on the couch in the living room. They run into the bathroom area. They had this big master bedroom, and the bathroom was just this huge door. It didn't even close. It was just a huge opening, and that's where the shower and the toilet and the sinks were and everything. But the bedroom was carpeted, and the bathroom was tile. And so I remember when we were sitting on the couch, I'm like, should we call 911? Because this is 1993 when 911 was the thing just coming out,
And you're learning how to dial 911.
Yeah, and you're like, 911. And so and you always wanted to call it because you were like, oh my gosh, I can call it right now. This is my chance. And then I was like, no, my dad, he would probably be really mad if I called 911 and he told us to just sit here. So then I'm like, guys, let's go. I grab my other 2 siblings. I drag them into the room with me. By the time we get to the edge of the carpet before it turned to tile, literally the flood of everything that's inside of you onto the floor, all the way up to the edge where our feet were. And we're all looking down. We look straight up. My dad looks over, and we're all there as soon as the baby's coming out.
Wow.
And that was it. That was just I literally saw everything at age 5.
That is insane.
It was really intense. So I try not to think about that right now, but it's I've been thinking about that my whole life, so it's I'm definitely have that image ingrained.
Yeah, that's a bloody image there to have.
And my dad, this is the best part, he literally looked at us and he was like, see kids, it's just like gutting a deer. Straight up.
Her dad is very raw.
He just says whatever, and it was hilarious. I don't think my mom was thrilled about that, but yeah. Then they took the placenta out because she birthed the placenta, and they took it out and put it in this giant pot that we still would
eat out
make
of
mashed potatoes in for 20 years after that.
Oh my god!
Every time I remember I was eating over one time, she was like, "See this pot? This is where the was so gross.
But they brought, because the midwife didn't come for over 2 hours after that. She was stuck in, I don't even know, I want to say a snowstorm, but it was September, so I don't think that's right. But because we lived in California, even though it literally never snowed, you'd have to be way up in the mountains. But she brought the pot over to the bed. They had a water bed. And then I just remember the placenta just chilling in that pot until she got there, because you don't want to cut it yourself in case you did something wrong.
Speaking of the waterbed, didn't you pop the waterbed purposely one time?
Yeah, well, I took a needle and I went and said goodnight. I said goodnight to my mom, and I went pew and push it into the bed. And then when I was
do it.
when I was leaving, I grabbed the needle and took it with me. And then I'm in the other room, and I'm like, oh, I don't think it did anything, because I thought it was gonna be like a balloon. Didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden I hear them freaking out, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And they patched it up real quick. And
oh my!
I don't think I told them till years later. But
How old were you?
I don't know. I still lived in California, so under the age of 10. We moved to New York when I was 10,
I've
almost
always
11.
wanted to pop a waterbed though.
It does. It doesn't pop as much like you would think. Like
It
you think
just
like a water
seeps.
balloon
Yeah.
or like a water or
It's
like a
too
balloon.
thick.
Yeah, it's thick.
It's too
It's
thick.
and also it doesn't have like it's not at full pressure because imagine
Mm-hmm.
sleeping on a tight,
Right.
like hard thing of water. The whole point needs to be like jiggly.
Yeah.
Am I talking all right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're doing good.
Make sure.
What are you checking?
Check. Yeah, you're good.
Okay.
I was making sure your thing wasn't coming through my mic.
Anthony can't see, but he still looks at you with this look, and you're like, "Why are you looking at me like that?" Like,
She always knows my looks.
yes,
She
my
does.
loving husband.
That's good. You got to cast those gazes. Dude.
He
Yeah.
knows how to give me those nonverbal cues, even though he doesn't live in a
I
visual
don't-
world.
I don't know nonverbals, but I can feel them.
Yes, he can feel them from me too, probably. But yeah,
Mhm.
so
That
That
is
You guys
was-
should get a waterbed. Kind
No.
of. I've
No.
always. I looked into them. I kind of wanted one.
I don't think I'd be down with the waterbed. My buddy
I
has
get really,
one.
I get sick,
Oh,
Yeah,
you get-
Kelly gets
uh-huh.
seasick,
Get
like
dizzy really
motion
easily.
sickness.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good.
like
No.
rocking or anything.
Also, like
They're loud.
making a baby on a waterbed sounds pretty
Yes.
intense.
Yeah, I don't know
Violent.
how they made all their kids on a waterbed.
You were all conceived on a waterbed.
I don't know if they had it in Connecticut, but
So the at-home births weren't like in water.
no, my mom
It was just on the floor. and that
she
one?
was just like
Kelly
I just
explains.
remember her leaning for my sister was like she was leaning on the bed in multiple different positions, whatever helped
Mhm.
work it out, but it was forever. Just remember it took forever. And I wasn't there for the actual like birth for
Yeah.
that one. Like
Yeah.
we were back and forth between the neighbor's house. I was only like 4 at that time, so for some reason the memories of that one are a little more cloudy than a year later. and it
5
was
is
just,
a-
like crazy. And my mom was basically propped up on the toilet for that one because it was coming so quick. And then my dad literally came in and reached like his hands under and pulled the baby out. And,
Like
sh-
gutting a
and then I
deer.
think
Like
she
gutting a
actually, I think she
deer.
birthed the placenta into the toilet.
Mm.
So I mean,
And you
dude,
cut the umbilical cord, didn't you?
for Karis for
Oh,
the planned
okay.
home birth.
Mm.
I did. They brought me in and they had all clamped and they showed me exactly like
It
the
all-
scissors were already on it. You just had to like
Mhm.
They had all K's except for Bryce.
yeah.
Ah.
Kelly, Karis, Carly, but Bryce.
Kelly, Bryce, Karis, and Carly. That's the order.
Mm.
Yeah, it was crazy.
That is
Red in
wild.
California, man.
Red and what was that? That was like kind of like the Sticks, right? It was a little hillbillyish, or no?
There's like 45,000 people in this. It's actually kind of
That's
a big
big.
city.
It's
Compared
Shasta
to the-
County, right?
Yeah, like, well, you know what it was like to live up in Trinity and
Yeah.
Humboldt, like down
It's
299.
freaking everything is. Well, you
You
actually
go to
have
Arcata, or like you go to the coast, Arcata and Eureka, or you go into Reading.
yeah, because Reading was the only like other place besides the coast that
Yeah.
had actual civilization.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it's in a valley, so but it's surrounded by 2 volcanoes. So it's Mount Lassen, which is a national park, and then Mount Shasta, and so there's snow-capped mountains off in the distance year round. But literally, it'll be like 125 degrees
In the
in the middle
valley.
of the summer, and like you can still see snow from
Yeah,
far away.
yeah.
Great In-N-Out Burger in Reading.
Yeah, but she didn't open till the day we were doing our garage sale to move to New York.
And your dad brought you guys all
Yeah,
double
I
doubles,
remember
right?
We
Double
got
doubles.
double doubles for everybody that was helping move because they were packing everything into this giant moving truck because we drove across the country to move to New York.
And you grew up in a church kind of, right? Like your parents started a church.
Yeah, that's why they moved out to California to like start a church with their friends,
Mhm.
and
It was a pretty big church.
it grew into it. At first, it was just like a few people, but then like Northern California is also like that part is like real big on
Christian.
church life and Christian churches, and I call them California Christians because
It's very like
they,
hippie.
They
Oh,
do
yeah.
all like I don't know how to explain it.
It's
if you're
almost
not-
like when they're worshiping, you're at like a fish show.
it's like I don't want to say like New Age Christian because that's like a whole nother thing, but
Mhm.
It's
That's what
like
I was thinking. but-
evangelical, maybe that's it. I don't know. It's where you believe in a lot more than just like you believe in like gifts and like being able to like hear words from God directly, and it's like really intense. And
Yeah, there's like
but
speaking in tongues.
It was like definitely a cool way to grow up. And then when we moved to New York, it was like went to every single church we went to after that was like totally not like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, like where?
And you had culture shock when you moved to New York. So
Yeah.
did you guys drive across the country?
We drove across the country and it took like, I think it was only supposed to take, like we were going to do it in like a week, but our van, because my parents would try and like kind of do sightseeing along the way too and try and make it like at least a
That's
little bit
cool.
fun for us. And I think they tried to, I don't remember where, it was in Montana, but I don't remember what mountain. They tried to drive up the mountain and our van, we had a huge truck. So my mom and dad would switch off between driving the truck and then the other person would be driving this huge minivan. It was like an Astro van, those Chevy Astro vans
We had an Astro
that
van.
are like real popular for van life now. But that was like our family van. And that was pulling a trailer too, like a tent trailer.
Yeah.
So we tried to like go up a mountain or something. This my memory could be like off about this, but I 100% know we tried to drive up something and it blew the transmission in the van and we were in the middle of nowhere. And so
Jeez.
we literally had to wait for like 4 or 5 days in Montana to get the van
the
fixed
van
before we could
fixed.
continue the rest of the trip,
Yeah.
which you're only in Montana, which isn't even halfway across the country.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, I remember that
That
was
was crazy.
crazy. And then is that the same trip where your dog got stolen?
no, that was we moved in 1999, and then in I think it was 98 we moved technically. I don't remember. I was like about to be 11, so whatever, 88 plus 11.
Yeah, so like 99.
Yes,
99,
because then it was the
2000.
Y2K when we first moved there, like year 2000.
Yeah.
But no,
Still get stuff from my
we went
grandma's
across
house.
the country in 1997, like on just a fun vacation. My dad had like a whole month or two sabbatical. Like he took like a whole vacation thing, and we drove across, saw all these awesome sights, went to national parks. We went out originally because my grandma and grandpa lived in Pennsylvania and Maine, and that's where we went to visit them. And so then we ended up going to visit the college that they both went to, which is Nyack College in New York. And on that trip, I think is when like they met people again or something. I don't really know how it worked out, but it ended up being like 2 years later we were moving to Nyack, New York for them to work at that college. So I
Okay.
think something on that road trip sparked
Mm-hmm.
the eventual move.
The
But
move,
that's when the dog got
But
stolen?
yeah, when we
You
stopped in
picked out-
Buffalo, New York.
Wait, to set this. You went and picked out your own boxer from the litter, right?
Yeah, so my dad wanted to get boxers because he had them growing up and they were supposedly like good with kids. And there's 4 of us, right? And we're all really little. And so then they were going to give us this boxer. This could be wrong too, but I think they were going to give it to us for free because it was albino and they usually have issues. So they couldn't sell it like they could have the other ones.
Like an all-white
Mhm.
boxer.
And it was all white with a brown patch in her eye. And like, since I was like the oldest one, I was like 6 at the time when we got it. 6 or 7. They let me name the dog, and so I named it Lady. And then like the next year, or maybe even like, I just remember the dog was little. Like it wasn't a puppy, but it probably wasn't fully 2 years old yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then we brought the dog with us on the road trip across the country in 97.
in a kennel, right?
Yeah, well, we had it in a kennel in the backs, in the trunk. So it was like, it was contained
Mm-hmm.
because there's freaking 4 of us in the car with all of our stuff too. And then we're in Buffalo, New York. So it had made it across the entire country. Buffalo, New York. We were stopped to go see a movie or something. I don't really know why. We went to the movie theater. And we had the dog out of the car to like, go to the bathroom and stuff before we were going to like leave it in the car, which still is like, why would you leave the dog in the car for an
Yeah.
entire movie? But I don't know. It was
Different
It was
times.
the 90s, you know?
Time.
And it wasn't like hot or anything. And so we had the windows cracked. So the Astro van, they go out to the sides, the windows,
Mhm.
right? They come out like 3 inches, 4 inches from the sides of the car. They pop out. Can you guys visualize that? Kind
I know. I'm very familiar with that. When
Yeah.
yeah.
one.
So then this guy was like asking my dad all these questions, like, oh, like, it's that dog, like, what's it, like, and I guess they never thought anything of it. But when we came back from being inside the movie theater, the person had stuck their arm underneath the window crack and unlocked the side of the door, opened the door, rummaged through the whole car, took my mom's purse, took a whole bunch of stuff. So I'll never forget getting back in the car, and I remember pushing up the back seat because it was fully down. And then I was like, oh my gosh. Like, it wasn't until like I was like, why is this car a mess? And I pushed up the back seat, even though I like could see the kennel wasn't there. It didn't like register in my head. And then we were like, oh, the dog is gone. Like, they took the dog in the entire
Stole the dog
kennel.
and the kennel.
So they didn't even need to take it out and like risk anything. They just somehow, that's why the back seat was down. They put the whole back seat down and then slid it out the side door. So I don't even think they opened the trunk.
And they never got the dog back.
No, but we found the purse like in a garbage can somewhere. We had the cops like looking forever. It was just like, but it's Niagara Falls, Buffalo, New York, which is near Niagara Falls. And that's real close to the Canadian border. And that's before you needed like IDs to go in and out. You could just kind of basically drive over, pre 9/11.
Yeah.
That is so traumatic.
So it was probably deep in Canada by the time, the cops were looking for it on the New York side.
Crazy.
And then we're all crying. It's like so sad and traumatic. And then like my dad's like trying to cheer us up and like takes us all to Niagara Falls still. That's my first time and only time I ever been there. And I'm just like, this is horrible. And yeah, it was like for a while after that, I just like could not like dogs because it was just like so traumatizing. I was just like, oh my gosh, like
you just want a lady, yeah.
Yeah, so I just was never like a big dog person after that moment until we got Delta.
That was your next dog, was Delta?
Well, no, they had Jack.
We had another dog after that. Shortly after that, we got another boxer. Her name was Tess. And she was brown and had like black on her face, and she was awesome. We had her for like 10 years. She moved to New York with us and everything. And then after Tess passed, we had Jack for a while, who was just a crazy mutt, and that was the first boy dog we ever had, which is crazy because like I never knew that like that red lipstick thing happens with boy dogs. Like
what, the Red Rocket?
Yeah, like
red lipstick.
7-Eleven hot dog.
They're freaking. They get that.
That's why I didn't want a boy dog.
That's what I'm saying. I'm glad we don't have a boy dog because it's intense, man. But
yeah, whatever. Dan has to relieve Otter every couple months.
I'm like,
that's wild.
over here.
Breathy. Pregnant, you're probably gonna have to pee 5 times during this episode.
All boys except later we got a girl dog.
But yeah, so I don't remember what we were talking about. But yeah, no, and then
us lady, that's messed up.
Intense. So then you moved to New York and you start a whole new life, and you were homeschooled leading up to that, right?
Yeah, so I was homeschooled until 4th grade, and then 4th and 5th grade, I went to this thing called charter school where you would go for math and science, and then the other, like, you'd go 2 days a week for math and science, and you'd be with a bunch of other kids that were in the same position, and then you'd be homeschooled for the other subjects. But, like, homeschooling is at the time you think it's kind of whack because you're like, everyone else is going to school, and you're like, ooh. But, like, when I think back on my childhood, I have no memories of being in school or like it being annoying because you could get done everything so much quicker. Like,
it's
I
like
remember
2 hours.
you'd have to go to the public schools to take certain tests to make sure you qualified to go to the next grade. But no, it was awesome. I mean, that's
well, at least you got to go charters and get like socialized.
Yeah, a little bit. But everyone else though is the same. Like, and then I went from that to 6th grade in New York was middle school, which was its own separate thing. And it was like 3 elementary schools dumped in the one middle school.
Yeah.
So, and then 6th grade is the first year. So everyone thought I just came from one of the other schools. And like,
so you didn't have like you were the new girl or something?
No, it wasn't, because everybody was new to everybody. And so I had like no idea how to interact in a public school setting. You're switching periods every like 50 minutes. So you're like literally physically walking through the hallways to get to the next class, which I think middle school is a lot different nowadays. Even high school, I think they do block scheduling and stuff. But like this was a time when you're still like every 50 minutes you're switching.
Yeah.
You know, it was crazy.
We had block in my high school.
Oh yeah, it was intense. Like I got real like I don't know, man. It was the first time I experienced winter on top of it.
Yes, you didn't know that there were actually coats that could keep you warm.
Oh yeah, you were saying that.
Straight up.
And
like,
my
my parents took like a $30,000 pay cut to move to New York. And then New York's also like way more expensive than where we lived in
was
California.
6th grade when you wanted to do softball?
Yeah, because of that you couldn't do school sports, so everyone did
Rec.
like travel teams
Yeah.
or whatever. And I was like, okay, this is like how I can meet friends, right? And then I was like, can you sign me up for this, whatever? And they were like, sorry, we like do not have any money to do that. And so
Yeah.
my parents, like, they were young when they had us, but not too young. I mean, they had me when they were 26, so it's a normal age, right?
Yeah.
I guess. But like then taking that huge pay cut, moving to New York, and they were always kind of made, maybe it's because I was the oldest, I was always hyper aware of like our financial status.
Yeah.
And so like, you know, I don't know if that's the right decision or if it just was what they thought was the right
regret it
thing.
to this day.
No, I mean just
Oh.
letting me know like so much
Yeah.
about.
Right. Their stress was going on to you probably.
Yeah, but naturally because I was 11, it was also this weird age where you can like stay home a couple hours with the kids and watch them. But then I was always be scared that like if they were bad, then it was going to come back on me because I was in charge. So it was like always weird, just like always the oldest child. But like I always felt like we were all the same age. So it wasn't until we moved to New York that I was like, wait, I'm why am I in charge of everybody right now?
One of my favorite stories from you in middle school is when you told me that everyone wore Abercrombie.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'll never forget this. So
Abercrombie
everyone
was hot.
Well, everyone at this one lunch table would
The cool
The
table.
only thing, like, I didn't understand people like had gone to elementary school together and known each other their whole lives. Like,
So they had,
those
like, a
dynamics
clique.
were like foreign to me because, you know, I'm coming from freaking California and I never went to elementary school in my entire life. I only went to like charter schools. So then they were all sitting at the table and I'm like trying to like understand things as a freaking 6th grader, like how dynamics worked or whatever. So the only thing I could figure out was that all these girls are all wearing Abercrombie.
At the same table.
And I'm like, okay, so if I wear an Abercrombie shirt, then they're going to invite me to sit at their table. And so I remember like getting one at the mall for like $5, like in the sale bin. I was like, oh my gosh. It literally was like purple, light purple, and had like 3 snowflakes across the top. And in the world's smallest letters underneath the one snowflake, it said Abercrombie. And I remember like
I'm in.
pulling down my shirt like a little, like, you know, like making it tight across my like really flat chest. And I was like, okay, maybe they can tell it says Abercrombie. And I would just like, I remember walking back and forth in the lunchroom.
In
back
front of the table
forth.
and
Yeah.
stuff. Oh my
And, like, just waiting for
god.
them to be like, oh, you can come sit with us. Like,
Oh,
and it never
classic,
happened.
like that's why like Mean Girls, when that movie came out, I was like, that was literally my life. Like I was Lindsay Lohan, like,
Gretchen Wieners was
homeschooled
like,
from Africa, like but not actually from Africa. Like,
Oh,
you know,
that's so
trying to
great.
like understand social dynamics and like super innocent, just like no idea what was going
oh
on.
my god.
It was really intense, but
It's crazy what you think at that age.
I know.
I just need an Abercrombie shirt and I'm in.
oh my gosh, I still to this day laugh because I'm like, that had nothing to do with it. They just all wore that stuff because they'd all were friends.
I had a friend like that. Brian Scribner was like really cool kid growing up, and he in 8th grade he had these like tannish brown Nikes with the white Nike swoosh, and they were like the SBs, and he would
4 SB probably.
well
Oh,
no, they were there.
What year?
2008. Oh yeah,
yeah. okay.
SBs were there, and he was rocking them, and he used to like always talk about how sick they were. And I was like, those are sick shoes. Like, I need those. And one day, like maybe a year later, they're all beat up and shit. And he's like, yo, you can have these. When I was at his house one day, and I remember getting those and thinking I had the coolest shoes in the world.
Hand-me-downs.
Oh, man.
Well, you had at least had older siblings to give you stuff.
Yeah, I used to
Yeah.
steal
So
their
you could
clothes all the
kinda-
time.
Which was how a lot of people were in my grade, had older siblings. I remember thinking anyone who had an older sibling was just automatically cool because, and I was like, oh, I'm screwed. Like I'm the oldest. Like
That's funny.
I'm never gonna be cool because they all like have role models. So yeah, it was was kind of crazy.
And then you went to high school. You were kind of a rebel.
Well, 9/11 happened when I was in 8th grade, so that changed everything. And then you kind of like realize that the world, like my mom told me not to go home, and first of all they told us in the lunchroom, plane hit the World Trade Center, but nothing bad. Like we only live 30 minutes from New York City, so a lot of people commuted in, and they're like, hey, so if your parents work in New York City, go to guidance counselor, but everything's fine. But at that time, the actual building had already fallen down, and they're telling us everything was fine. So then they let us out really early, and I go home, and my mom was like, I'm on my way home, this like pre-cell phones, and she's like, don't turn on the TV. And I was like, okay, and I'll turn on the TV right away when I got home. And I saw the whole thing happen. I saw it crash. And then I immediately turn off the TV, and I'm like, she comes home, and I'm like trying to sit there like I didn't just watch all that. And I was like, I saw it. And then I remember we had to go pick up my siblings at elementary school, and yeah, it was crazy. So yeah, it was nuts. But that changed everything. Kind of like didn't really care about the same things that you used to after that.
Yeah, it puts a lot of things into perspective.
Yeah, and you were so close to New York, so
yeah,
you lived in New York, so you were kind of just in that whole like watching the whole world and country band behind you.
And I was in school
at this kind of mentality.
I was in school at Philly at the time too, so there was things going on in Philly with the planes too. So we had to go home early. It was crazy.
Yeah. I know. It was a nuts time for everyone in that whole general. Actually, I think the whole country was kind of going crazy that day because you just had no idea if it was going to keep happening in other cities or what. Yeah, no, it was nuts. And then
started TSA.
Yeah. And then everything changed.
I was pretty naive to it. Like I didn't really understand the full gravity of it.
Yeah, I think the closer you were, the more real it was.
Well, no, I was just only cared about other shit.
Skating.
Like more selfish, not thinking about what, my brother told me, he's like, we're probably going to go to war. Then I was like, oh, then I kind of understood how serious it was.
Yeah.
It's crazy how far away you can keep yourself from things like that, like mentally, because even like Ukraine, like no one, it doesn't affect us. So you don't think about like what people are going through. And Kelly works with people in Ukraine. So I'd be like in the room and she'd be on work calls. And these people would be working in bomb shelters, like on Zoom. So and then you really get the full effect of like how this is affecting people's lives. And it's wild.
Yeah, it's been over a year of war. I used to go there because I've been with the company for almost 11 years. And I used to go to Ukraine a lot, like all the time. I spent like over 2 months there in a row at one point. I used to go a lot, and
she had a Ukrainian boyfriend.
It was crazy.
Did you? I
did have a Ukrainian boyfriend for like 2 months.
What was his name?
His name was Vladimir.
Vladimir.
But it was spelled VOLO.
Vladimir.
DMYR. But this is the funniest thing about his name. They would call him Vova as his nickname.
Oh my god!
And I was like, bro, like, do you know how close that nickname is to like vulva? But yeah,
wow.
That's
vulva.
wild. And he used to make you. He used to yell at you if you wore your outside shoes in the house.
Oh, he was really intense person. Yeah,
That's
it
just
was
so
okay.
funny
So
to me
it was
when I
like
think about
basically
that.
I was in a 5-year relationship, and then he was like my rebound.
Yeah, you were in a pretty toxic relationship.
Yeah, and then I was like, okay. After that ended, I was like, I'm gonna be a digital nomad because I can work remote anywhere. So I was like, I'm gonna live in different countries and work. And so I like I went to Paris, and then I went to Barcelona for like a month, and then I went to Ukraine and stayed for a month in each of the different cities we had offices. And I met him like the first day I was in Ukraine, like through my friend, because she was like, you need a husband. And she's like,
So
my friend needs a wife. I'm going to meet you up. And so like she like brings him over and like to this work party we're having. And so I meet him like the first night I'm freaking there, like, and I don't know, we just stayed talking on the phone for like a whole month when I was in the other city, and we like met up in the capital city with like a bunch of other people. And then I was like, all right, I'll just come back to that city for a month, and then we can like actually date together.
Yeah.
And then that month was like, all right, you know, you kind of like both realized, okay, you're definitely not going to be my husband.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was crazy. And then I went to Thailand.
Hear that? You, Vova.
Yeah. 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 So then I left and went to Thailand, and yeah, it was crazy.
Thailand, and then when did you come back?
After Thailand, because while I was in Thailand, my boss was like, all right, so you can like live and work anywhere, but like you need to live somewhere in America. Because like this whole like
Digital
traveling,
nomad.
I mean, that life is really intense because unless you have like your whole, like where you're going to live, where you're going to go next, like your whole month in a place is spent trying to figure out where you're going in the next month, basically. Because you're like, oh, I got to go live somewhere for a month. Where am I going to go next? And then you're also burning through your money a lot quicker. And
Yeah.
but like I was living in San Francisco, so I thought that was the best time to do that because I was used to paying really high rent. And then I could just take that same rent that I was paying and live on the road. But it still like burned money super quick. So it was really hard. But like Ukraine and Thailand were ideal because both those places are super inexpensive to live.
Yeah.
Well,
to.
Here's my question. Because through high school and college, you worked at like an ice cream shop and then Cheesecake Factory and a couple bars and things like that. When was your first like interest in tech? Like when did you get involved with that?
So right when I was about to graduate college, the restaurant I was working at offered me like an event planning job. This in like Pennsylvania outside of Philly. And I was like, no, I want to go back to New York. Like, and I don't want to be stuck in the restaurant loop. Like it works for some people, but I had just spent 4 years getting a degree in business. And I was like, I can't just go straight to event planning in a restaurant that I like don't even need my degree for, which still to this day, I don't even think I technically have needed my degree for any of the jobs I've had, but it's still one of those things where mentally you're like, I need a different job. I need to like more of a career, which that still could have been a career. I was just done with that. Like I wanted something else. And so my dad's friend, who's like my best friend from home's like father, my friend Kyle, he was a bridesmaid in my wedding.
He was.
So his dad, we've known them forever. Like my parents went to college with them, and we knew them forever. He had like he just basically worked for himself with like one other person, and they did a lot of agency work for pharmaceutical companies and whatnot. And so he was like, yeah, I'll give her a job for like $500 a week or something. And I'm like, oh, sick. Like that's way less than what I made waiting tables, but it's like a real job. Like, wow. And eventually it went up much higher than $500 a week, thankfully. But I started doing that where you'd go to a lot of like meetings and we were essentially building software tools for these companies, but we were just the company that would help facilitate that. And we would hire a tech company to build everything. And so the company that we hired at the time was only like 5 people. And it was the company I ended up like leaving that job and going to work for. So when I went
because he got into some trouble, right? And then you had to get a new job.
Yeah, he got into some trouble. Like, it was like, I'd probably rather not talk about that just because I love their family too much. But it was like he got into some weird legal stuff, and I was like, I need to leave this job. And he gave me a severance and everything. Which was really nice. So I had like, and then MEV, which I'm wearing this sweatshirt right now. This is actually the sweatshirt I got engaged in. Yeah, no idea. At the time, Alex, who worked for MEV, which is the company we would hire to do everything, he had only like 8 people working for him. All of them were in Ukraine. Him and one other guy were the only people in America, and they lived in New York City. And I was like, oh, I got a severance. I'm going to move to New York City. I'm going to like try and get a job there. And so I like moved to New York City. He said I could work for him. I could work hourly, work from home, work in the office, whatever. Like, it was really chill from the very beginning. It was like, whatever hours you work, I'll pay you for that. So it was very flexible, and I was like, this is sweet. I don't have to, because like the first job was like sitting in a freaking office all day
Right.
by myself, and it was. I remember thinking like a year and a half into that job, it was like coming up on the second summer after graduating, and I was like, I can't believe I went to college for 4 years to sit inside of a freaking office all day, every day, the same day. It was just like, I had this crazy epiphany where I was like, this is horrible. And so when I had the option to like work remote, work from home, and then go into the office when I wanted to, I was like, that is ideal. Like, I think that sounds way better. And so I did that, and then that was 11 years ago, and my role changed so much, because at the time it was like he didn't even really need me, I don't think. He just saw the drama of where I came from. He had been exposed to me for 2 years, like that I was a hard worker and would like basically do anything that was needed to be done, that I was able to learn, that you could teach me things and I could just figure it out. I could also like present new ideas. Like, you know, it wasn't just like you had to tell me everything to do and then, you know, whatever. So
yeah, it didn't have to be like.
No, that's the most valuable thing.
yeah,
that
so like
someone's
basically
looking
it started
for.
off doing like, hey, can you send an email to like this company for me, or like whatever, can you follow up on this bill? It was kind of like
Ad hoc.
I don't even know what to explain. And then I was like a project manager at one point, which that's really hard to do when you have like no experience, but it was cool because he let me like learn
And make
along
mistakes.
the way. He would teach me things. He would like, because that's kind of how he started his whole business, is just like figuring stuff out. But he was very technical, and I was way more like
Yeah, someone looking
client
to
friendly, I guess.
someone looking to hire somebody. That's exactly what they're looking for.
Yeah,
Because you're not gonna know
and I'm like,
how to do most
yeah,
things at a new
everyone
job.
else is like,
But someone who
freaking-
can learn
Yeah.
is the most valuable thing.
and everyone else is Ukrainian, and
Very Slavic.
they all had accents too, and I'm the only one born in America. They all speak great English, but I'm literally native. So I think from a sales side, it also just kind of helped a little bit too, just being on those calls, like in meetings, and just
Being able
in
to like
person and
go back and forth with the client
yeah,
too,
and
or what
also
they
just
needed.
understanding like the dynamic of like, oh, I think, like even still to this day, it's like, yeah, I know that that's what the client's saying, but at the end of the day, I'm pretty sure this is what they actually mean, because I know this person. I can tell that they don't always say what they.
It's like reading between the lines.
Yeah, like, and I'm very like, I could kind of like have very good intuition about certain things, and I mean my whole role, whether or not, however it's changed over the years, has always kind of been, I'm the client, run it by me first. So like,
Yeah.
you know, and then we'll take it to the actual client. So I've always tried to think like them, and it just exposed me to like just that. I mean, my degree was in business and like management and marketing anyway. So, I mean, that just like I've always had fun, and I always said like, I'll leave eventually when I stop learning, or when I think that like there's not enough for me to like learn from here. But when you're taking a company from 8 people, building software at a time when it's starting to blow up, when tech companies aren't even a thing yet. I like, you know, the iPhone had just come out, and I'm like learning how to build apps for it, which was like so cool to me, because I always loved how things worked and on the back end, and like actually being in a company that could do all that stuff and just like bring people's visions. Because, you know, there was a time when everybody had an app idea, you know, everybody wanted to build an app, and then I actually could follow all the steps to build you that app. And I can't do anything myself. I can't like code anything, but I know exactly who to contact, who to hire, who to like. Still to this day, I could do any
the
project,
steps that go into
anything.
it.
Like, that's why I'm even excited about working on the skate park stuff with Anthony and his friend. They added me to the committee just because I was with Anthony, and it's very obvious that my only role there is that's useful is just the business experience I have of like, okay, what are our next steps? Like, who do we need to contact to get this done? Like, so yeah, now I have the opportunity to build a physical project.
So so let's get into you're in New York when you and Anthony met.
We were actually in New Jersey.
Yeah, so
Cal-
I
so when she
actually
was in
remember I was in
Thailand.
Thailand, right? So my boss is like, you got to choose New York or California, or go back to Colorado. He's like, anywhere in America, please just go back to America. And I'm like, okay, I'm going back to New York because I've been obsessed with New York my whole life. I love New York City. Just like it's the perfect place to be completely alone, which is funny because there's so many people, but like it just makes you feel way less alone when you don't have as much.
Because everyone else is alone.
Everyone else is like alone, and so you have independent too. Like it's not just like being alone. It's like people are like
Thriving.
super confident in what they do, and they don't need a community of people like encouraging them to like oh yeah, you're doing the right thing. So it's like I don't know. So I'm like, all right, I'm moving back to New York. At the time, and then I'm like, I'm still like kind of sad, me and the Ukrainian break up, vulva break up.
You, Volvo. I'm just kidding. I love you, Volvo.
Then I'm going down to visit my sister. She was living in California at the time, but they would come back in the wintertime after the season because they worked on Weed Farm, which is like the farm I actually introduced her to. This farm, we skipped kind of a whole chapter of my life when I moved to Colorado when weed was legalizing because I wanted to like do that, and I did a bunch of software projects, and I ran a cannabis tech like association group, and I did
used to do
all
like
this,
meetups.
I did all these apps around weed at the time, which was like really fun life. And so then when I moved to California, I would go up to this like giant weed farm that my friends owned on the weekend.
Boyfriend at the time was working.
Yeah, so that's because I got him a job there.
Oh.
So I got, I'm like, you suck. You're not making any money. Go work on this farm. And so I would go up there and visit. And then my sister came. She came on that farm, pitched a tent. I was like, you can just, trim weed, make some money, and then you can go do wherever you want, travel wherever. She ends up meeting Anthony's childhood friend
like
on
one
that
of my
farm.
best friends.
Like this kid he grew up with, like that Anthony even used to live with and be
in
on
California.
this exact farm before.
Yeah, I worked on the
Literally
farm,
the farm
with
that I
her
used to go-
boyfriend and didn't know they were dating. I didn't know Kelly.
Yeah, it was nuts. And so, and I had never crossed paths with Anthony, but I'd heard about him all the time. Oh, our blind friend, our blind friend, our blind friend. Like, I was like, okay, that's a weird way of like referring to someone. Like, does he have a name? But I get it now because it's just easier than whatever. So then I'm like, we're back in New Jersey, right? Because off season, I'm in New York. I drive down to Jersey because this guy that Karis, my sister, is dating at the time, his friend Petey, he lives near the beach. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. I've never really been to the beach in the winter. Go down to the beach. I just got back from Thailand, still super jet lagged. We're like walking on the beach, and Anthony comes with like his other friends, and they're like, oh yeah, this is the blind guy. And I'm like,
And I had just got back from Tokyo,
yeah,
and I'm
so he's super
jet lagged.
lagged too. And then I'm like, okay, is this guy like, he must not be like that blind. He's like not, he doesn't have a cane. He's not wearing sunglasses. I never met a blind person before, really. So
But quick side note,
like,
Kelly got a Braille tattoo of its love in the
Yeah.
Braille code on her wrist 7 years before we ever even met.
Yeah. So I had this tattoo from years and years ago, which I didn't tell him that right away. Like, hey, you're blind. I have a Braille tattoo. So I'm just like kind of watching this guy. We're on the beach. My sister goes up to him out of nowhere, flips him over her back, and slams him onto the ground. And I was like, what the hell? Like, that's so random. Like, that's
It
my
was
sister.
very
That's my
random.
sister for you. Like, but she was just like messing around with him, and like, but he didn't know it was coming, so he just like takes a straight up judo slam to the ground.
A hard one. And I
Hard
just
one.
shake it off like nothing happened.
Yeah, and so
Love you,
then,
Karis.
and then we leave the beach, and then we go to the outlet, and we're on the way to the outlet, which I'm like still confused why this guy's walking around like with no cane if he's blind. And I'm like, maybe he's not that blind. Then I'm like, I'm just trying to like be cool. I'm like, oh, do you need help or anything? He's like, no, I'm good. Then he smacks, and you know how they like have the poles, the poles that go up like 3 feet, so
And
they're
that
not
was-
like fully up. They're just like kind
That
of
was
like,
a little glimpse into the rest of your life.
smacks into this pole, and I was like, holy, like, you good? Like, and he's like, yeah, I can't see anything. And I was like, well, what the heck? Like, why are we just walking around the outlets? And he's like, I don't know. That's what everybody wanted to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
That was miserable.
So then I realized that,
it was
oh
in
my
the
gosh.
Timberland store. I'll never forget.
Yeah, I realized this guy's like super blind. I'm like, oh my gosh. And, you know, then later that night we had fried chicken that his friend made, which I knew I knew there was something there. This is when I knew, because only people left eating after everyone else had eaten were me and my sister and Anthony. And I was like, yeah, like he belongs in this family. Like
we were going up, getting like
eating,
sevenths.
like no problem. Like, oh, you guys are done? Well, we're gonna keep eating because this fried chicken is amazing. And then like I go back to New York. My sister's like, oh my gosh, you should go with that guy as his date. He wants your number. I'm gonna give him your number. Blah blah blah. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like, to his film premiere, like go with him, be his date. And I was like, what film? Like thinking it's just like iPhone movie. I'm like, okay, yeah, totally. I'll go to his film premiere in New York City. Like, oh my gosh, another like Brooklyn artist, dude. And I'm just like, I'm like, okay, yeah, whatever. Oh yeah, I'll go on a date with you. Oh, no one else is dating me right now. I was like super like into like kind of just, I was over dating.
Not
I was
looking
like,
to date. Yeah.
not looking to date. I didn't
when
care.
it happens.
I was super confident. Like I didn't need anybody. I was like living back in New York City. I got my like loner lifestyle like going on. And then I go to this premiere with Anthony. Didn't really put two and two together that like it's his friends and family premiere for the first time ever of his film.
All the backers and
as I'm like, oh, I'm gonna wear
Super
a velvet.
dramatic
I'm
and
gonna wear
stuff,
a
probably for your whole
velvet
family
dress.
and
Like
emotional.
yeah.
I'm gonna wear a velvet dress so that he can feel what I look like. And my sister's like, you can't do that. That's weird. I'm like, no, he's blind. Like, I'm gonna wear a velvet dress. It'll be like soft. And I'm like I remember wearing it. It was freezing, coldest day ever in New York.
Coldest
it was like
day ever.
negative freaking
10 degrees.
It was
probably.
freezing. And I wore this awesome, like really cute dress. It was super tight and velvet. And I
And
had
snow
huge
boots.
snow boots on. And I was like, yeah, this is a vibe. I was like, I didn't care, you know, whatever.
Sounds New York.
It
yeah.
was very
New York,
it was
Colorado.
very Brooklyn. And so then I'm first person who like comes up to us when we get in there is like his sister, like, oh my gosh, Anthony, who's your date? Like as if I'm not freaking standing there, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like who are these people? Like
There was
and then his
family.
mom,
there was like 200 people there.
and then his mom was like, "Oh, Anthony, who's your date?" And now that I know his family, I'm like, "Oh my god, this totally makes sense why that's what they did."
My mom
But-
thought because of how good. So Kelly was incredible with helping me around, like as a sighted guide and stuff. So I didn't have to like, because at the time I was still nervous using my cane, like insecure and stuff. And Kelly was so good at helping me around that later my mom said to me, she was like, I honestly thought you hired a mobility instructor to walk around with you.
Yeah, which is like, yep, I'm an escort for the blind. Actually,
Hey,
that's a job.
I can help them get
That's an
around.
that's an app.
That's an
I
app.
can, that's we should that should be my next career.
But you got to
path
wear a
is-
velvet dress and
Yeah,
snow
Yeah,
boots.
that's what I
tactile
mean.
dresses.
But no, there was just this like I remember losing
the
him right
heterosexual
when we
men.
first got in, and he got dragged away by somebody, and then I could see him looking around like really confused, and then I went up to him and I was like, "Do you want me to just stay with you and like take you wherever you need to go and like help you around?" He was like, "Yeah, that'd be awesome," and I was like, "Okay,
Shown
okay."
in the green room.
I can't imagine Anthony in this situation
Oh my
trying
gosh.
so hard.
Oh, it was so cool. So Anthony, he knows everybody. I knew no one, and that was kind of what he wanted. He wanted somebody that
Yeah.
nobody knew to be his date.
Yes.
And so it was kind of cool because everyone was just like,
who the hell is this
crap,
girl?
Anthony's a freaking movie star and he's got this girl that nobody
And it
knows.
was like, this girl's
and,
so, like, who's your hot date?
yeah,
Like,
like even his sister's like, oh my gosh, Anthony, your date's so beautiful. Who is she? And I'm like, I am literally standing right next to him. Like, who does this? But it's like, it was really funny. And yeah, even when the movie ended, that's how I learned his entire freaking life story in an hour and a half. And then when the movie ended, I remember 200 something people in the movie theater, and I took him from the middle row and walked him all the way to the stage, so it's just me and him walking through the aisle. Everyone's sitting down. I walk him to the stage, help him get up on the stage with like his friends. Like like it wasn't even a thought to me. Like I wasn't nervous. I was like, well, he needs help, so I'm just gonna help him get up there. That's what he asked me to do, and I would have been more scared doing that now. Now that I know everyone who was in that room,
for sure.
but like I didn't care. I didn't know anybody. Like
I remember my Aunt Joyce said to me, she's like in the Q&A, she's like, Anthony, do you feel the Holy Spirit in you, like with what you're doing and stuff? I was like, he's burning him inside of me all day, Aunt Joyce. Or so. It was like the funniest thing at the time.
Yeah, but no, that was funny.
was-
And
That
then
was your
later that
first
night,
date.
after we were leaving the premiere,
Oh, this is
he's
good.
like, I'm like, do you want me to help you? Like, because in New York, when it snows a lot and it's freezing cold, all the snow gets pushed to the side, and then the sidewalks don't necessarily get plowed, especially where you have to cross the street. But there's always 2 huge footprints for you to like step into, so you can like go from the sidewalk to the street, past the huge snow mound. Like,
Yeah.
and I was like, do you want me to help you get past these giant snow mounds? He's like, no, I'm good. No, I'm good. I'm just like, haha, all right. I go to cross the street. And I just let him like basically almost fall on his face. And he's and I was like, I looked at him I'm like, do you need help now? And he's like, yes, please. And I'm like, exactly.
my
Like,
God.
and it was just funny because I just got it. Like, okay, you want your independence, you want your freedom over certain things, but I'm like, bro, you need help. Like, you at least use your cane. And that was the beginning of it all.
Yeah.
Dang. How did that night end? Did you guys kiss?
Big old makeout sesh.
We did.
On
Makeout
the
sesh.
whole way home, Jerry, in the back seat of Petey's
Yeah.
car. Petey and Karis up front.
Yeah.
Karis is asleep.
You're feeling all over that velvet
feeling
dress?
all over the velvet dress. Petey's just, all of a sudden, the music gets louder because Petey's like, I don't want to hear this.
And you could tell they were like super not necessarily wanting it to happen because
Yeah.
first thing we did once we got back to is their hometown. It's like an hour or so from the city.
They drop me off,
They-
Jerry.
they-
They don't bring me back to Petey's
They
house.
drop him off.
No.
Like literally at his house by himself, and then we go back to Pete's house and we're like partying with a bunch of people. I was like,
Blocked
I got cock
I was
blocked,
like,
Jerry.
why did we leave Anthony at
Gee.
home? Like, what is
And it was
that?
my movie premiere.
Yeah,
Petey.
Yeah.
Oh, I know.
because I was staying there and everything, so like.
Oh, it would have been a slam
Oh,
dunk.
dude, I was home with my freaking just sitting there.
By
with- Yeah,
yourself.
all blue balled up.
Oh, no.
Oh, it was brutal, Jerry.
Yeah, but none of it.
But it was for the best because
It
it,
was.
created that
'Cause, like,
yearning
Yeah,
for you.
I
Yeah.
think shortly after that, I went on another trip. I think probably went to Ukraine.
You went to Ukraine, and I think I went to Germany or Brazil.
Yeah,
I went to
yeah.
Brazil.
All I know is that that started everything. We stayed in contact. We texted a lot.
WhatsApp. And then Kelly used to send me like pictures of places where she was traveling, and I used to just be like, "Oh, it's so cool," or like
I didn't-
have someone else tell me
I
what the
thought
picture
he
was.
could see like if things were like really close to his face, or like he could see
Yeah.
his phone at least. And then I would text him all the time, not realizing a fucking robot was reading it to him. And then when I finally realized that, I stopped sending pictures, and then I started sending voice messages, so it was like my voice at least coming through the phone. And then eventually we started talking on the phone more. And then I remember it was like Valentine's Day, and I was like in the city, and he was like just getting back from a trip, and I was like, he was like, yeah, I'm gonna come down. I'm gonna come.
Yeah,
up
I
to
was
the
coming
city."
back from Brazil. There was a huge snowstorm. I didn't know if I was gonna make it back that night because I'm in the airport, and they're like, I had to get off the plane, the whole thing. Like we gotta deboard,
But
and
he's telling me all day.
I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there. And I get home, and it's still a blizzard it's a blizzard in New Jersey and New York. No one would drive me, and then Kelly finally, she's like, "Are you fucking kidding me? Like you told me all this time, like you just been playing me, like you're
Well,
just like everyone else type of thing."
I was just
And-
like, why would you tell someone that if you literally knew you wouldn't be able to make it up there?
And
so
this
I
is
was,
when
like,
people would
annoyed.
run away and be like, screw it, I lost or something. But I got my butt in the gear. I started calling everyone I knew. No one would drive me. So I call an Uber, Jerry, and the Uber calls
this
me.
was when Brett took you.
Oh, okay, my buddy
he
took
finally
me.
found someone that would take him. But it was like, he didn't even get to New York City till like 10:30 p.m. on Valentine's Day. I was already out to eat with everyone else that was single, having single party dinner, and then all of a sudden he actually shows up.
Her
and I
friend
like,
was
"Oh my
betting her that
gosh."
I wasn't going to make it.
Yeah, like at that point too, I was like, no, he's still gonna come. He's still gonna come. And then I'm like, oh my god,
She's
it's
all
literally
dressed up.
10 p.m. Like it's 10:30. He's not gonna come. And then he shows up.
I
and-
remember I showed up with a backpack on. I have like
Yeah.
a goofy sweatshirt on or something. I just look like a Jersey kid. I walk in the
But even
freaking.
before we walked in the restaurant, I told you the exact setup.
Yeah,
of
she
the
told me the
table.
setting, the scene
like,
inside.
everything.
So I had a vision. But look, I go inside. The first thing I hear is from another table, no one we're with. That kid's probably from Jersey. And I was like, oh shit, dude, where am I? Like, I'm not a New Yorker. I don't belong.
God.
I was so scared, and then
Yeah.
it all went great. But the next time I had to come up to New York,
Yeah.
I had called an Uber in the middle of a snowstorm, and the guy calls me. He's like, "Where are you trying to go?" Because he it doesn't show you. I'm like, I gotta go to New York. He's like, "Oh, buddy, sorry, I can't help you." And I had to call another Uber.
Hang on, back off that mic a little bit. It sounds a
Sorry,
little hot,
sorry.
but no, you're
I had
good.
to call
This is
another
good.
Uber. I had to call another Uber, and I had to be like, "Yeah, I really need a ride to New York." And this guy's like from Ireland. He's like, "I got you, mate." Like he got me right, and he got me there. We chatted the whole time. Great drive.
Which is
And
like this is like $150 Uber.
put it on the
Yeah.
old
least.
credit card.
At least. I mean, nowadays it would probably be 200. But it was like it was not a cheap Uber, and I was like, oh my gosh, this guy like
Doing
actually Ubered here for me. Like this is awesome. Like I understand the Valentine's thing because I was like pissed at him, and it was like basically like if you don't come tonight, you just lost so much of my trust because you were bullshitting me all day. But
And
then
she's dealt with like people in the past, like just bad
I mean,
relationships.
that's like
Yeah.
every girl
Yeah.
like dealt with like guys that say they're gonna do something
I
and
just
then they're
came
like,
from Brazil, damn it.
yeah, I did,
Cut
and
me
I
some
gave her my
slack.
bronze medal.
Well, I also still didn't realize how like blind you were too,
Yeah.
and I'm like, ugh, can't somebody just drive you? Like,
Isn't that? I love thinking about what we would do. Like I think about me in the beginning of my blindness, and you in the beginning of that relationship, and doing that Uber ride and going into the restaurant by yourself, and then like compare that to now, where like if I was in that situation, I'd call Heather like, "Hey, meet me outside. Come get me."
Yes.
You know what I mean? And how like,
I did go outside.
But she
to
did.
get him.
oh, you did meet
She
him.
did.
Oh,
And
okay.
I
met
told
me
him
outside.
outside of the restaurant,
Okay.
like, okay, we're set up in the back corner. We're this
Gotcha.
huge table.
It
You're
was
gonna
amazing.
sit.
I
It was one of those things where just like even like the film premiere just came naturally. Like
This
Mhm.
girl went above and
I
beyond.
like
and
knew he needed.
just her whole
Meant
thing
to
of
be.
like, yeah, it was so meant to
Yeah.
be. She was so
It was
attentive,
cool.
attentive to the things I needed without even me explaining what I needed.
Right.
And then I'll never forget the day I finally started using my cane, because I was so scared to use my cane because of girls. Really, that was like one
Yeah,
of the
yeah. Oh,
main
yeah,
bottom
yeah.
lines was like a girl won't want to date me with a cane,
Right.
and
Yeah,
Kelly
it
was the
worked.
opposite.
It was probably good, you know.
Yeah, but no,
Probably
but
good.
I
You
remember
didn't have the cane.
we're
No, I'm
walking
just kidding.
around New York City.
Walking
and-
into a pole in the Timberland
No,
store.
we're walking around New York City though,
Yeah.
and it's like you got to do it's the hustle and bustle where you got to move the shoulder when people are coming by.
Mhm.
You got to do a lot of shoulder
Yeah.
shrugs.
Yeah.
And I would be bumping into people, freaking
yeah.
bouncing
And
around.
then they'd give this look like,
Oh yeah.
really,
fuck's
bro?
wrong with you,
like,
bro?
Really? Like, really just shoulder slam me? You couldn't have moved your shoulder to the right? And I'm like, oh my God.
And then
I'm
Kelly's
this
like,
guy's going to get in a fight.
You got to use your
Like,
cane. She's like, you got to, even if you just hold it. Like,
Right.
so then I started holding it. And then some days I'd be like, I don't want to be blind today. And she'd be like, all right, give me it. And she would walk around with the cane, like,
I
just
would-
holding
like
it.
just holding it straight
Not
up, not
using
actually
it.
trying to like, whatever, but even just having that indicator,
People
people
aware,
avoid
yeah.
you, or if you smash into someone, they're not pissed anymore.
Oh, dude, people
Super
used
cute.
to pull their girlfriends out of the freaking middle of the sidewalk. They'd be, get out of the way, honey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so but that's how it all started, and then eventually when we were living in Brooklyn, to get like Anthony would started staying with me a lot more, and basically would slowly start moving all the stuff in, and found a gym nearby, like
Found a training
found
club.
everything that he needed to train to
Mhm.
I
continue
lived
training.
in New York City,
Yeah.
Jerry. It was so overwhelming. In my head was an anxiety attack every day, all day. Every time I went out that door, I had to go somewhere by myself. But I just loved
That
Kelly
says,
so
yeah,
much
that says
that
everything, because I was the kind of person that
she was so anti-Jersey.
I would never. Well, I was anti everywhere. I was like, New York is the best place. I'm gonna live here forever. I'm gonna raise a family here. I'm gonna make it here. I'm gonna live in New York City forever. Like, it's exactly how I was 100%. And Anthony knew that, and just was He could have left so much sooner and been like, okay, this girl's never gonna live in New York. I gotta just find someone else. And he found a gym. He found a club.
Oh,
He
I had my
found-
whole life
he
planned out. I was like,
moved-
I'm living in the city.
And we'd drive down to his family, like stay with his parents. We'd drive down to New Jersey and we'd stay down there and like on weekends and randomly. But yeah, no, it was just like, nope, we're staying here. We're living here. And it
And when
wasn't until like
The pandemic, yeah, when that hit, we're staying
which
in.
is
that is when
actually
you made
3
me-
years ago to this day. That's when
Holy
they made
shit.
the announcement that
Holy shit. The pandemic when it hit, we saw the last concert in MSG. It was the Allman Brothers 50th anniversary show. And we went with my buddy, and then we're like, oh shit, like this is getting pretty serious, the pandemic, like things are shutting down. It's getting serious. So we left the city not knowing if we'd ever be back to that apartment, but our stuff's still there. And we go to my
thinking
parents.
it was only going to be like 2 weeks because that's what they were saying.
That's what everyone. Yeah,
They're gonna say
2 weeks.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
shut down for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
So we pack up
what do they
enough
call it?
stuff for,
Flatten
like,
the curve.
Yeah, flatten the curb.
So we go to
yeah, we
my
go-
parents, and I never forget this day. We're there for like maybe 2-3 weeks at this
yeah,
time.
It was rounding the third
And
week.
my mom looks at us and she goes, "We could be here forever. Like you guys just stay here." Kelly looks at me. She's like, "I cannot live here. Like in my parents' house. Like
Yeah.
I was like, it's just a lot."
That's a lot.
And
Yeah.
Kelly, like,
was
freaking
awful.
bless her heart, she really put up with it in the beginning. And then she looked at me one day. She's like, "We need to do like I understand if you need to stay, but I really need to go." And I was like, I looked at her. I was like, "I'm with you. Let's go wherever you want to go." And we ended up going to her parents' cabin in upstate New York.
You actually hit me with I was going to propose
Yes,
to you.
because I was gonna propose to her in England. We were supposed to go to England.
So when I'm like, look, I understand if you need to stay, but I have to go and I'm not putting pressure on you. And he just blurted out like, I was going to propose to you. And I was like,
England.
bitch, you better still. But no, like he tried to make it like very obvious to me that no, I'm with you and I'm not just with you because you're my girlfriend. Like I wanted to take this to the next level, but all that trip literally got canceled because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
It was
Wait,
gonna
Quick rewind. I will never forget the first time I said I love you to Kelly. It was on 4/20, April 20th, and it was at night, and we were in my parents' basement, like sleeping on the couch or something. And I said it. I remember it took everything inside of me because I've wanted to say it for a while. I knew I loved her, and I was so scared. And I said it, and she didn't respond. And I'm sitting there, and then she falls asleep like 5 minutes later, and I'm up all night like, what the
Oh
fuck did I
my
just
God.
do? I'm screwed. I just ruined everything. She's gonna run away. And then it took her till the next day to
No,
say
I
it.
woke you up the next morning and I was like,
Yeah, I was like so scared.
that was
Jared.
probably like my own, like I literally probably knew what I was doing and I just was like, I'm gonna put him through one last test here before I let him know that
You didn't say I love you. You said I one love you.
yeah, I said I want love you. But yeah, no, so it was crazy. And then we
went to the cabin.
we
We
went to
spent a
my
lot of
parents'
time
house
there.
upstate New York, which was like a really big deal for them. They're the kind of like
You
Oh, they
have
were
to be
there
married.
too?
No, but
No,
they're
no,
like
they're
type you
just-
have to be married.
they
if you're,
wouldn't even
Ah,
let you
oh,
stay in the
religious-
same room
yeah,
or in the
yes,
same.
yes.
Which so my dad must have just realized like this is like this guy's for real and like this is someone like she's in a position she has nothing else to do and
This guy's Ferraro.
he didn't care that it was just going to be the two of us up there. He
Yeah.
said I could go live at the house as long as I needed to. And while we're up there, I'm like, okay,
Don't get pregnant.
yeah, right. I was like, I'll move to Spring Lake with you if you can find us an apartment. He's like,
Oh,
"Are-"
it's spring. So this
he's
is
like,
the move.
are
to
you sure?
Jersey.
Are you sure? Are you sure? And I was like, yes, but only if you can find us an apartment
that's
in
standalone.
town. That's like, I put up like doesn't share walls with anyone else.
She
that's
put
like,
up all these barriers.
that's
All
that's
these-
at least
Bunch of loopholes.
at least 2 bedrooms. That's like, whatever. And within 2 hours, he had the apartment.
I called. I had it signed the next day.
It was probably the greatest day of his life, realizing he was going to be able to move out of New York City.
Oh, it's amazing.
Really?
Saddest day of my life, but it took me a while. To,
I didn't know about the whole New York
told
saga
me
with
to
you.
grow. It taught me how to. It took me a year. Took me at least 2 years to like grow to love where we live now.
And she does.
Because I was so
Jersey's
gung ho.
dope.
Like even to this day, I'm like, I can't believe I'm having a baby outside of New York City. Like I always thought I'd be pushing a stroller in Manhattan, like freaking city mom
with your
like,
McLaren stroller.
You know, just like
the Bentley. Sure, yeah.
I always thought like really tiny, you know, whatever. So anyway, long story, yeah, and then we got engaged that May. End of May or end of June, I don't even know. And then
you wore another tactile dress.
Yeah, we were engaged for almost 2 years, and then finally got married. And I wore a tactile wedding dress.
And it blew up.
Going back to the velvet dress days, but I was like, if I wore the velvet dress on our first date, I have to wear something that feels really nice for our wedding because a lot of wedding dresses look nice, but they feel really horrible, but they look great in pictures.
They feel all crunchy.
And I was like, I don't want that for Anthony. And it was just cool. And then it blew up. And then that's when we, you know, our social media stuff, we'd already been doing it for like 8 months or something, but it just really went to the next level after that. And then we didn't go on a honeymoon. We started going on all these skate trips.
Kelly was
like,
mad
that's
about
like,
that.
That's like when I'm basically first meeting Dan. Like we're going on all these skate trips, just got married. Never went on a honeymoon. We started traveling again for the first time in like 2 years for skate competitions. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what is my life? Used to live in New York City and go to like Barcelona and Paris. And now I'm freaking in Tampa, Florida for a skateboard competition, like filming videos. Like I was just like, I can't believe this. It was crazy. And then we eventually went to Hawaii for a honeymoon like a year later. And in Hawaii, I'm like, look at him on the way to Hawaii, and I'm like, you know, I think I'm like ready for the next stage of like life. Like I think I could have a kid, you know. I think I'm like ready. And so in Hawaii, we're like, woo, like having sex like every day, no protection, just like woohoo, let's make a baby.
Had
Thought
sex
for
next
sure.
to a waterfall.
Thought for sure.
Per Dan's request.
We thought for
Have
sure
to.
we were gonna get pregnant in Hawaii on our honeymoon because we were there for 3 weeks. I was like, we're gonna do this. Get back, nah, I'm not pregnant. And then I'm like, oh well, you know, it could take like a year to get pregnant of trying.
Next time we had
next
sex.
time.
Thanksgiving, right? Is that what it was?
Well, we found out the morning of Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
found out.
so like 2 weeks later, basically
Yeah.
after coming back from Hawaii, must have been the date of conception.
Yeah.
And found out Thanksgiving morning and been pregnant ever since.
Yeah, I had to take a 2 week break from sex after Hawaii.
On this so I don't know when this episode's gonna come out, but probably soon. But whenever today's Wednesday, this coming Saturday, so whatever that is.
21 weeks?
No, it'll be 20 weeks, which is exactly halfway through. So half cooked, half baked. Half baked, Ben and Jerry's in the tummy.
Well, the size of a zucchini or a magic 8
something
ball.
like that. But yeah, we'll have our first like
Freaking
big
kid.
ultrasound, and I still can't believe having a kid.
And you guys don't want to know what it is. So
And Kelly's the most plan-oriented, like...
that's true.
But
That's
the
good.
reason why I don't like, at first I was like, of course we would find out. And then I'm like, Anthony wanted it to be a surprise. And then I'm like, you know what? That sounds a lot better because if I knew it was a girl, I'd be like in its high school years already. If I knew it was a boy, same situation. I'd be like too far down the road. So I think
Something about
just
not
like
finding
not
out the
knowing
gender.
doesn't like let me rush that because I have no idea if I should imagine a life of a girl or a boy.
Do you know if your parents knew, Kelly?
Well, they never did.
They never knew.
So that's also why it was kind of cool.
Neither did mine.
Oh, your mom
That's
either.
very
Yeah.
old school. Like it used to be like normal to not find out. Like because apparently it's the
I
best
wonder if my
surprise
mom
ever.
did. I don't know.
Also, I'm
I
like,
bet she didn't find out.
yeah, I don't know if I don't see myself having even another kid after this. I have to have the first one first and
Yeah,
then
we'll see.
decide.
Yeah.
So this could be the one chance of having that big surprise, and I feel like might as well
Yeah, a lot of people find out for like that have the surprise first. We'll
And-
find out for the second.
And
or third.
Anthony wants to be the one to like
very
have the
romantic,
doctor
yeah.
like whisper in his ear what it is when it comes out, so he can be like, "It's a boy, it's a girl!" Like he wants to scream it out.
And Kelly will have the iPhone up.
Yeah, we're gonna have a tripod
Kelly will
filming.
be 3, 2, 1. Tell him, Doc.
3, 2, 1. All right, tell me what it is. I'm blind, having a baby. I know, but I think there has to be some background footage of that.
There's
That
gotta
will never be
I'll
shown.
probably
I'll be
sneak
in
the
there
phone.
filming.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's gonna be the next journey. The next time I'm on the pod.
I'd be holding a little, swaddling a little baby
But
for
yeah,
her.
so basically,
Little baby boy.
you guys don't really see me on here, but every week I'm the one who mashes up the audio and the video.
Everything.
I try and make clips to promo it. I try and like
You're always
I'm the
coming up with new
producer,
way. You
uh,
also have that marketing brain where you
I do a
you
lot
know
of
about the
negotiation for
algos.
us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do all the back
I
and
do all
forth.
the videos that you see on social media.
For me
Which,
too.
if only the podcast could get as popular as those videos.
We're getting it
But
there.
we're gonna figure it out. And now there's a lot of people this podcast could potentially be supporting someday. Everyone in this
Mhm.
room.
We gotta support
Yeah,
babies
gotta
now.
Little
support
baby.
babies.
So I think it'd be funny the next time that you'll see me on here.
You'll have a little,
I'll have the baby with me.
little alien.
Put a mask on it, and then you won't. You'll have to guess if it's a girl or a boy.
We gotta put a what's it called? A poll up on the Instagram. What do you think?
Oh,
it's a boy
a poll.
Or a girl?
Yes, we
Ooh,
should.
that's a good one.
That is
See
good.
Yeah, that is a
what
good
the
one.
audience thinks.
And
You
then
can
see us
actually
right
add polls to Spotify too.
for the podcast.
Oh yeah.
But I didn't want to add one when we made the
we haven't made
announcement.
you haven't made the
because-
SF announcement yet.
Yeah, and also just if you like see the poll, is it a boy or a girl? You're gonna be like, who's having a baby?
The announcement will definitely be
I
out.
also think it was really funny when they did the podcast. That they were announcing it on the pod. It sounded like for the
We're
first,
having a baby.
It sounded for the first like 5 minutes that the two of them were having
We're
a baby.
We're adopting.
But yeah, so basically they are. So yeah, but I think
Yeah, Dan's gonna be in that baby's life a lot.
Uncle D.
Uncle
he said we
D.
could bring it here. Just it has to stay outside.
That was Heather said that. I'll sneak him in at night.
Him or her, yeah. But yeah,
They'll
no,
be
so
skating the ledge.
I think that's yeah. If you need any web development, you need people to build you apps. I got you.
She built my website.
Yeah.
Kelly was when I remember I broke down to her one day in New York City because I was like, I had the film and like the story and stuff, and I was like, I really feel like people could benefit from this. I wish new people, like more people, could know my story and it could get out there and like help others. It was really my main goal, just to help others. And she was like, all right, fine, I got you. And she helped me set up an Instagram. She helped
Website,
me do
business
the website,
cards.
business cards, everything. And I felt so official
I
walking
always-
around New York
I
City with
told you-
business cards.
I told him from the beginning, it's not that you're not popular only because you don't have anywhere for someone to follow your story. Your story would be anyone would be excited to learn about your story.
So she helped me funnel everything
but
into
it
one
took,
place.
It took years to actually have more than just a couple thousand people knowing.
It
about
was like 800, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I hit 1,000 followers, like, let's go.
Yeah, it was a lot. But he didn't even have an Instagram. He would make Facebook posts. So I just kind of set him up. And then we were just dating then. And then when we
Right.
got engaged, we got a little bit more serious about helping him. And then we got closer to the wedding, and that's when we kind of started making the plan and doing all those videos and stuff.
Right.
It wasn't until I really realized, like, your story is going to be a part of my story too, that it's worth me investing all that time to help him, because it takes so much work to do
Yeah.
all of that stuff. So if anybody is just starting out, you gotta keep going and realize that it could take years to actually get to where you want to go.
It does take
But-
years, yeah.
That's like anything you do, any career, anything you set out to do. It's like, I mean, I started that job 11 years ago, and there wasn't even a title for me. I just did whatever needed to be done.
Right.
I figured things out. I read a ton of books. I did a lot of research. It's like, that's just what you got to do for anything.
And
So
she was able to do all the things that my brain, like I'm more an artist brain,
yeah.
and she's very like
Yeah.
technical, analytical, and she was able to like like algorithms. I didn't even know what the hell an algorithm was.
Yeah,
And-
it helped because I've built all those apps for so many years. So when I was on the other side of, okay, here's how you use them, it was like, you need a good quality output of audio, of video, of you need to like, it was like all these things where it was just like, it made sense to me right from the beginning because I know how the machines read that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's like where it all came in. And I mean, it's like, it's a whole nother battle now. And I get like stressed out because I'm like, I don't even know like what to do next. Or even with the podcast, I don't listen to a ton of podcasts myself. So I don't know how to grow them or
And
send
also-
them. But that's real early on. It's like when Instagram first came out, it took years for that to even be a thing. It's same with podcasts. We're real early on in the podcast journey, even though there's tons of people with a podcast. It's like, you got to just keep going, and eventually something's going to make sense where
Right.
it's all worth it. I mean, it's only like a year and 2 months into even doing this podcast. So, like, I think the main thing is just not giving up and taking what opportunities we have, like taking the small ad reads and figuring it all out. And, we using the money that we've made off of this podcast, like what little it is, and reinvesting it back into everything podcast related. So eventually something is going to come
like
of this.
Studio 4.
Studio 4.
Look at this
You're
thing.
going to see a behind the scenes of Anthony making that 4 up there.
Yes. We talked about
Film
that.
that video.
And not to get cheesy, but like when I first started dating Kelly, like I was traveling around the world for judo, and I was traveling with other blind people who really were afraid to venture out and get out of their comfort zone. So it was a lot of just staying in the hotel in these other countries and not going out and exploring. Maybe do one group trip to like a site or something.
Right.
But it was nothing. Like I would be sitting in the freaking hotel room with so much anxiety. Like I gotta get out there. There's the whole world out there. And Kelly was traveling on the other end by herself. And when she started coming on the trips with me, it was like she started filling in all those visual gaps that I was missing, and like really taking the time to slow down and like being like, feel this landscape or feel the tactile, like how this building is. And it just really, that's when I knew. I was like, this girl is incredible.
I have noticed that with Kelly. Any little thing, she'll tell you to feel it or explain it to you.
Yes. And
Like,
it's
no matter what.
It's amazing.
It's funny because Dan's like not like that. She's like, I don't care. And I'm just like, Anthony does.
Like, oh, come look at this. I'm like, yeah, okay, cool.
You're like, I don't care. But that's also how a lot of people were my whole life. Is I'd be like, oh my gosh, look at this grass, look at these trees, and they're like,
And
okay,
then,
shut
yeah.
up.
I remember this is when I knew. Kelly was sitting somewhere, it might have been San Francisco or somewhere in Northern California, and we weren't with each other, but she was texting me, like voice texting, and she put herself in my position, like if Anthony was here, how would he see this? And that's how she explained it to me.
The rooftop in Barcelona.
Yeah, oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was just so cool. But
Which eventually got to go back to that exact rooftop with you,
no.
princess.
But
But anyway,
I love you
it's
so
been a
much,
while.
Kelly. I love you so much, Kelly, and I'm just glad you're finally on the pod. It's been a long time coming, and thank you for everything you do for both of us with this podcast. Really, like the videos, and I'm really grateful, and I love you.
Yeah,
Thanks for-
Kelly, you truly are amazing.
Thank you.
I can't imagine Anthony without Kelly or Kelly without Anthony.
I know.
so.
Yeah, I mean,
We're
have
like
my
peanut butter
moments.
and Kelly.
I get pretty intense sometimes and a
She's
little
my
annoying,
Kelly
but
bean. I love you.
What are you gonna do?
All right. And as always, keep
pushing and
One love.
One love, 3 love.
Keep pushing and one love from 4 Bad Eyes.